So let's start with how autism is understood in the Netherlands. Would someone like to start this one?
I'll be happy to start.
Okay.
My belief is that there really isn't a lot of understanding of autism here in the Netherlands. That's why we decided to kind of take matters into our own hands and
Hmm.
create something so that we could help those everyone here to understand our kids.
Hmm.
I think they understand autism to be classic autism. They don't understand that there is a autism spectrum disorder. I actually even had a psychiatrist say to me that he didn't believe that there was such thing as an autism spectrum disorder, a Dutch psychiatrist. And I pointed out, well, the DSM-5 says differently, and I couldn't believe that I was having this discussion with somebody who was supposed to be diagnosing our kids.
Mm.
So that's I think mostly the way it's seen. Just classic autism. They don't believe in the spectrum, and uh, that's my feeling. Anybody else?
I can answer that. I have the feeling that it's quite hard to get services for autism, and it's quite hard to deal with autism in general everywhere. I mean, I think in every country it's hard to get funding, get services, make people understand. Um, but I don't know, maybe it's because we integrated like really early on when we came here, and I speak Dutch from like very early on. I found that I have more understanding here when walking with my son, or when he's having trouble in the in the open with when there's other people, than in my own country of origin. Because what tends to happen that in Bosnia, usually I feel very awkward walking with him, or taking him to a store, or going to the swimming pool, or just normal activities that you would do with any child, because people are not educated about children being different, and not um, like following all the rules. Whereas here, I've made the um, um, experience that if we go to the pool, and I say to the people, well, he has autism, that's why he's screaming. I generally see understanding in other people's eyes. So I'm talking here about situations on the street, in a restaurant, in the swimming pool, on the tennis court, wherever. So my experience is a bit different than Catherine's, but on the other hand, she dealt with a lot more than I did. But
Hmm.
it's generally speaking, and what kind of also made me take the citizenship is one time my worst nightmare kind of became true, because Kenan eloped. So he ran away, and I didn't know where he was. And whoever has like a child eloping knows the feeling of just pure panic, dread, and just fear. But people were amazing. So there was, after everything happened and after we found him, there was this one guy who stopped his car and went to search after him, and then an elderly gentleman helped explain to everybody that probably there's something wrong with this child, and so when you have that happen to you, and when you see how people actually want to help and how they react, I found that this is a really good country to be living in. So without, except for all the part about getting services for your
I
child.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just interject a bit on that?
Hmm.
I agree with Enesa that there are people that absolutely are so understanding, but I feel like the initial understanding of autism, it I always feel like I have to explain, and it's almost like 20 years ago in the U.S., and maybe it's because I came from a place like the U.S. where it seems like everybody knows somebody with autism spectrum disorder. So, or like has a friend who has or knows someone. So it's a little bit like wherever we go, whenever I'm back in the US, there's always, like when Luke's in a CVS and he's looking at the cameras and he's dancing around, and people are always, I can tell that they understand why he's doing what he's doing immediately. There is like an instant recognition. Like, I've had people say to me, "Oh, I have a son that does the same exact thing," So, and that doesn't happen here. I don't really see a lot of kids out and about doing those things in public. And I'm always wondering, like, where are these kids? Why aren't they at the grocery store? Why aren't they, in the shops? Like, are parents not, are they not feeling comfortable bringing them out? Or, do they feel that society is not accepting of them? So, that's, just my experience.
Mm-hmm. Moji, how about you? What are your experiences, especially compared to all the different countries that you've lived in?
Yes. So when Matthew was diagnosed, he was diagnosed when we were living in Nigeria, and he was 2.5 years old. And in Nigeria, I had to create my own services because there wasn't any, kids like my son are usually hidden, and very few people acknowledged even that autism was a thing. And so I had to create my own services there. I sought out the help of a Norwegian psychologist. And so we were up and down in Norway for the first year. And then we sought services also in South Africa. So I've had an opportunity to kind of see services in different places. But I also speak from a position of accessing those services as a private client, and not as somebody living in the country, which of course is completely different. So I had fantastic support in the first year when my son was diagnosed. We decamped to Norway for the summer, and I spent 8 weeks there with my son and my 2 other children, and we had incredible services there. It was just unbelievable. But again, I was accessing this as a private client. So I don't know if this would have been the norm for people living in Norway. And also in South Africa, same, very good services. And in Nigeria, even though there were no services there, what was great was that in setting up this, creating my own services, I sought out students from the universities, and we proceeded to train them. So we would either bring in experts to train them, or we would fly them out with us to go and meet with psychologists that we were seeing, to have them trained by the psychologists. So I guess the one positive thing with us when we left Nigeria was that we left this group of people who had been well trained. And then upon leaving Nigeria, we moved to the Netherlands. And in the Netherlands, it was initially, I thought that I had found the right support for my son. But of course, it's very easy to find support for a child when the child is not in the country. So everything looks good. But then when you bring the child in, and then you then put the child in the system, you then realize that, oh, the child is struggling to cope with the surroundings it's in, and which is what happened to my son. He found it extremely difficult to make this transition from Nigeria to this new place I had found for him. So this was very clear to me right from the first week that he would not be able to go to this school I had found for him. And so then I was left in a position where I had to then seek help to where could I get autism services. So, I think that, I don't know if my experience would have been different if my son had been born here and he had followed the I guess the care system, in the sense that, kids are, for example, in Scotland, kids are assessed every 6 months, and they have like a way of identifying kids that are struggling, and early interventions and things. I don't know if that would have been different if we had been born here and we had lived here. But certainly coming in as an expat at the time, I didn't know where to turn to, and I found another lady who was the one that kind of guided me through the whole system. And it's basically, and I think that's always the challenge when you move into a new country, that no matter how great the country is, you still kind of almost need somebody to hold your hands and steer you through how the system works. And that took time. And so in that process, I had to create new services for myself in the Netherlands. And so I brought again the lady who had coordinated and ran our program in Nigeria. She was based between the UK and Nigeria at the time. So I flew her back to the Netherlands to set up a new program, a new home program for me. And then in the process, I managed to meet other parents who were able to kind of guide me to find a place where I could put my son. I think the problem is that services, you have to dig for them. Sometimes it's not very obvious where to look. And even sometimes the experts don't know where to tell you to look. And I think that's probably the frustrating thing. I think funding wise, I think the government has a good heart, and but in terms of the services, how accessible are those services to parents when they need them? I think that's probably the most difficult part, is trying to find out where to go for those services, and do those services cater to the needs of your child that has autism? Because I think what tends to happen is that sometimes they can group all kids with disabilities under one roof, and a child with autism has very different needs from a child with Down syndrome or from a child with cerebral palsy, for example. And it's trying to kind of separate that, and to be aware of that these are all different kind of conditions that need to be treated differently. So I think that's probably one of the issues here when it comes to services, that I don't know how easily accessible it is. I think that I have been very fortunate that I have been able to kind of find a way to get access. But I don't know how easy it would be for somebody else, for example, who perhaps doesn't have the time or the energy that I've had to put into it.
You've been watching Autism Knows No Borders. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Also, we'd love to hear from you, so let us know what you think in the comments section. Click here to watch this interview in its entirety. You can also find us on your favorite podcast app. Tune in each week for engaging conversations of how people across the globe are inspiring change and building community. Thanks for watching. Take care.